Hey, it's your one and only gamer, True Blue, back with a new series. Since I'm graduated from high school, I really wanted to start focusing on my channel and build some form of consistency behind it. I already have my reviews at High Velocity and Ultimate series, but both series are on the opposite ends of a spectrum. To find a middle ground between the two, I'm introducing Blue's Views, a series where I give my thoughts on a topic, but without it being too long and thorough like the Ultimate series, or too quick and general like the reviews at High Velocity. And to debut such a phenomenal invention, I'll be kicking it off with the most radical game of 2000, Jet Set Radio. Before buying this game, all I had really seen of it was the Steam page and how it was a game about rollerblading and funky Sonic Rush-esque music. They even tried to demonetize the Let's Players, which is pretty radical and groovy. When I first played through the game, I realized how slippery the controls were, which makes sense since you are rollerblading, but it's really frustrating. Get on the stupid crane! Just because something makes sense in context, it doesn't make it good. But let's see what people think of it. At first the controls take a little while to get used to, but after that you're fine. The music was surprisingly good. The style of JSR is refreshing. A classic, so much funk, flavor and color, all in one retro package. The people working on this project created one of the most fun and stylish games that still hold up to this day. What an amazing video game. I can't compare it to the Dreamcast version as I never played it. I was introduced with Jet Set Radio Future on the original Xbox instead, way back in my childhood. But this is still very nostalgic and I had an absolute blast. It's a bit inferior to JSRF, considering JSRF expanded on literally everything JSR had, not to mention removed the arcade style gameplay does take a little bit to master. I mainly just struggled with the differences to JSR and worthy predecessor. Especially for the most part, you're just tagging up turfs in a cell-shaded Tokyo. You make spraying graffiti. I actually had a lot of blading gangs as well. Overall, the cell-shaded ranking stages I learned the layouts. It's weirdly addictive. Now with that said, Sega, please also recommend the game to last time. Awful port, borderline unplayable. Obviously this guy has the right opinion. Strolling on in with that Karisu profile picture, he/she is gonna create time travel one day. Jet Set Radio to me is an extremely frustrating game. You get very little air control and movement on the floor can be easy as you run through open spaces or annoying in tight ones. On top of that, add in the NPCs constantly trying to drain your health and you're suddenly put under a lot of pressure. I wouldn't say I found the game unfun, but the constant pressure put on me easily burnt me out, and I struggled to continuously play it for longer than 2 hours. The level design also plays a big part in this. It's not linear and requires you to do a lot of sharp turns and precise movements. You're bothered by the frustrating controls, constantly followed by enemies, and there's a time limit to put a lot of pressure on the player during the main missions. Small entrances that you have to go through are quickly overlooked due to this pressure, since you can't stay for long. The object of the main missions require you to spray graffiti at every red arrow, so if you're missing these small areas, you'll straight up fail. I think around 3 times I looked up a playthrough on YouTube to find one hidden arrow, and if I didn't, there were a few instances where I wasted a lot of time trying to find it. In this stage I kept missing the small opening because it's on the side of a building, so I never ended up facing it until I glitched through a fence, rode a grind rail, and fell in front of it. The game takes advantage of stress. A deadline is coming, so you have to find that last arrow, but if you take your time to look at all the sides of the buildings, you'll be shot at and both be closer to death and running out of time. And you have no way to slow down the enemies other than reaching an area that they can't reach. But even then, later in the game, the enemies become more and more relentless and gain access to more spaces. This is probably why one of my favorite missions in the game are races. In the races you have to get to one area before your opponent and you can get there in any way you desire. There are 3 of these in the main campaign and the first 2 was a lot of trial and error. At first the stages in the game seem pretty small, but in later levels new paths open up linking the smaller stages together, creating one large stage. And the first time they did that was in a race stage, so I had no idea where to go and how each stage linked together. This meant that I had to follow my opponent the whole time before the slippery controls caused me to lose them and start again. It felt unfair, but once you know where to go, the controls don't really get in the way. The third race had me go through a course I already knew, and I got through it and then finished on my first try, because I knew where the goal was. But These stages weren't designed to be race courses, and once you know where to go, all challenges eliminated, which is why it's only one of my favorite missions. This brings me to the best type of mission in the game: chases. These require you to chase 3 NPCs around one of the small maps. You have to spray each NPC 10 times on the back while traversing the environment and picking up spray cans. There's still a time limit, and touching the enemies will damage you, but the urgency doesn't hinder how you play the game. The NPCs won't be hiding in these hard to spot areas, and even if they did, there would be less pressure on you since there are no other NPCs chasing you, so you're less likely to miss them. While these stages are designed well, you can be running in circles trying to catch these NPCs. Each NPC has their own set route to follow, so it's just the same thing over and over again if you don't catch them soon. Bigger maps or randomized routes could have greatly improved this, and I bet that's completely possible in this day and age. But other than that, this is probably the best mission type in the game. Jet Set Radio also has a large variety of characters to play as that you'll unlock throughout the game. Each character has their own stats. Power determines a character's health, technique determines the points they receive while doing tricks, and graffiti determines the points they'll receive when spraying graffiti. This gives you the chance to be as stylish as Beat, or you could just be Squidward. Jet Set Radio in general is a very stylish game. It's full of so much character. I love the art style, and it was even one of the first cel-shaded games to exist. I love the funky music. In fact, Hideki Naganuma composed the music for Jet Set Radio and Sonic Rush, and because I like Sonic Rush's soundtrack, I instantly felt at home with Jet Set Radio's. The tone of the game can also be really goofy and yet intense. Like, it involves a demon summoning record, until you finish the game and they tell you that the record doesn't actually summon demon, and it was all a rumor. But you have suicide bombers, attack helicopters, whiplash, and guys in jetpacks chasing you over graffiti and a rumor. And you even have the final boss that takes place on a giant record, with girls that are stripped down to their underwear, wearing rhino helmets and dancing in suggestive ways, trying to distract you from your mission. Fortunately, those rhino helmets were a turn off, so I did not get distracted. Overall, it's obvious that the radical 2000s presentation of the game really stuck with people and made it one of Sega's best games. I'd even buy Jet Set Radio Future if I had the original Xbox, which I've heard is way better. Sega seriously ported Sonic Lost World to PC instead of Jet Set Radio Future? What dumbos. And despite the game's flaws, Jet Set Radio has a ton of potential on current gen hardware. There's no doubt that the perfect Jet Set Radio game is just waiting to be made. Hub World's better AI and better rollerblading controls would greatly improve the game. Too bad Sega denied a pitch for a third game. Twice. But guys, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and if you want to interact with me directly, you could follow my Twitter or check out my Discord server. But like at the end of every video, I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.